In a strange turn of events, and no, it is not an episode of The Twilight Zone, for those of you old enough to know what that is, today I'm going to be advocating for some digital video games. I know you're thinking, Jay, you're always like, oh, but physical media, it's better. Why don't you, if you have the disc and you have the cartridge, you can always back it up and then you have the game forever, right? Oh, you never shut up about it. Like, yeah, I get it. Okay, I get it. However, there are also times, like the PS3 marketplace, or in this case, the Wii U and 3DS marketplace, the eShops, where I think there are some really, really good deals on here that are definitely worth buying digitally. And I wanted to talk about it because these eShops will soon be dead. And you might think, well, Jay, why does this matter at all? I don't care because I have a Switch. You know, I already have a Switch. Clearly everything that's on the eShop on these old things is going to be on the Switch, right? Right? I mean, Nintendo, they wouldn't not put these things on there, would they? I mean, it's very easy. It's just a matter of emulation, right? Not necessarily. There's a lot of stuff on the eShops from previous generations that are good games that are actually not on the Nintendo Switch or really any current architecture at all for Nintendo, that as of March 27th of 2023, you will no longer be able to buy, because on that date, the Nintendo eShop for Wii U system and the Nintendo 3DS family of systems will no longer be able to make purchases. You won't be able to buy things on there. Now, even after March 27th, 2023, and for the foreseeable future, according to Nintendo of America, you will still be able to download things. You'll still be able to re-download games and DLC, receive software updates, and enjoy online play on the Wii U and 3DS, but you will no longer be able to buy things. And of course, they do say even after March 27th, 2023, and for the foreseeable future, you'll be able to re-download games and DLC. There may still hit a point, and I'm pretty sure there will at some point, where you won't even be able to do that. If that architecture fully shuts down, it's just a matter of time. And so because of that, I wanted to run through some examples of some games that I think are really worth your money. It's worth mentioning that there are some games on the eShop for the Nintendo 3DS that are exclusive to that eShop that you will no longer be able to buy going forward, at least for the near future. One of those is a game like Mario and Donkey Kong Minis on the Move. Of course, there is also Phoenix Wright Dual Destinies, and even a game like Style Savvy Styling Star. That's actually a game that was physically released in Japan, not actually in America. So even based on region, there's going to be things that are exclusive to that region on the 3DS store that if you want to be able to play them on your 3DS in that region, you're no longer going to be able to, following the shutdown of this store. The Pokemon games on here are really, really worth it. Now, from my understanding, and anybody who's a Pokemon fanatic in the comments down below can kind of clarify this, there is going to essentially be an update when this eShop shuts down that if you have Pokemon Bank, it is going to actually be updated to be free. Pokemon Bank was essentially the trading center between games like Pokemon X and Y, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, Sun, Ultra Sun, Moon, Ultra Moon, sort of that 3DS era of Pokemon. There actually was a really cool feature with Pokemon Bank as well, because they actually made a lot of old Pokemon games available digitally on the 3DS. Games like Pokemon Crystal, games like Pokemon Yellow, Red, Blue, Gold, Silver, a lot of these older Pokemon games are now available digitally on the 3DS for relatively cheap and in multiple language versions. And why does that matter? Well, because if you are a big Pokemon fan, for example, once Bank becomes free, and this is only if you've already downloaded it, you know, it's already on your account because you have to have it before this. Once it becomes free, this is going to be the way to get a lot of those Pokemon cross-generationally on games like X and Y and Sun and Moon and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And while I know that there are a lot of Switch Pokemon games now, there's a lot less interactivity between game generations. The Pokemon Company and I guess Game Freak, they don't really push this feature anymore. There was, in the past, the idea of being able to get a Pokemon in the Johto region and then bring it over to a different region later on, or get it in the Hoenn region and bring it over to a later region, you know, in a later game. And this is essentially the way to do that for the 3DS system of games. So if you want to be able to do that, this is pretty much how to do it. And why do the digitals actually matter for this? Well, because one, it's really the easiest way to do it. And two, it's actually a lot cheaper than buying the games themselves physically. I own a physical authentic cartridge of Pokemon Crystal. I actually went out and bought one a long time ago where it had the battery replaced, so it's not a dry battery. It's going to work for a long, long time. But if you want to go and buy an authentic Pokemon Crystal, for example, you're looking at over $100 for the most part if it's in decent shape. Often going to be approaching between $100 and $150 US. Not sure what that's going to be in other regions, but that's just in the United States for the US version of that cartridge on the Game Boy Color. And it's often the same for a lot of the older Pokemon games as well. You're looking at over $70 for most of the old cartridges of games like Pokemon Blue, Red, Yellow, Silver, Crystal, Gold. Those are going to be a lot of money, and there's a lot of examples of games on both eShops like that are not just Pokemon. Another example of this is actually on the Wii U eShop, Super Mario RPG. You want to buy that game? It is dirt cheap right now on the eShop on the Wii U. I believe I got it for under $10. I don't remember the exact price. When it comes to Super Mario RPG, if you don't want one that looks like it survived a nuclear holocaust, you are looking at over $100 for just the cartridge. So that's an SNES game, but of course I bought it for less than $10 digitally, and then it's digitally preserved on my Wii U. Now, there is also hardware faults and things like that of what happens when my Wii U goes bad. I'm hoping to eventually have a second one at some point, but I do think that it's worth pointing out that there are a lot of examples of this too. I found a really cool thing posted by user 300 Mirrors about a year ago over on Reddit, where they went through some examples of what the secondhand value was loose for those games at the time. I'm talking just cartridge, not complete. So like if you think, oh, well, you know what? I'm a physical collector. At least I could get the game with the box and everything. No. A lot of these games with the box and stuff like that, way more expensive. This is just loose. If you wanted to buy Earthbound on the SNES, that's $350 or more as of a year ago, no box. But now if you want to buy it on the eShop, it's $10. That is a massive day and night difference, especially for somebody who just wants to be able to play the games. A game like Devil's Third, which is not good, but if you want to actually be able to own the game physically, that was $130, or it was $30 on the eShop instead. You know, games like Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones on the Game Boy Advance, approaching $60 as of a year ago. And a lot of these prices have actually gone up since then, because there's a group of bad actors trying to purposely inflate the physical games market and make it more niche and work together to price gouge these things. A lot of different collectors have talked about that in the past. But also, of course, these prices just naturally rise as there's fewer and fewer copies of these games in good condition. So if you want the Sacred Stones, that's about $60 as of a year ago, or $8 on the eShop. And there's a lot of examples of games like this too. One of the biggest ones that I saw, and I've never played this game, but it's just to kind of drive the point home. Pocky and Rocky with Becky is a game for the Game Boy Advance. That's $220 to own just a cartridge, or $8 to own just the game itself on the eShop. And finally, one of the biggest ones I've seen as well, Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3 for the Game Boy Advance. Well, you could pay $117 for the game, the e-reader cards for the game, or of course you could pay $8 on the Wii U eShop. Once these things are gone, there are going to be a lot of games that are at minimum 5 to 10 times more expensive in order to get your hands on them if you ever want to play them through official channels. Now, the good thing about the world is that because emulation exists, a lot of things have been preserved in that way. And of course, there are games like the Mega Man Battle Network games, like the Battle Network 1 through 6, that are actually going to be preserved as well on upcoming HD re-releases, but that's not the case for everything. And even some of the games that are actually on, I guess I would say, the Switch eShop, the eShop has changed very much from a purchasable place to more of a subscription-based place. And what I mean by that is that now, especially when you look at things like the SNES, the NES, and of course the Nintendo 64, there's really not many options to buy games for that on the Switch eShop and on newer Nintendo architecture, because instead of selling you it one time, they got smart and decided that they can charge you for the membership for the Nintendo Switch Online and then bundle those games in with it. And of course, they are Nintendo games, but subject to licenses and everything else, as anything is, you never know if anything's around forever, and the Switch itself won't be either. Now, I also know the Nintendo Wii U and 3DS will not be around forever, but if you want to have these games to be able to play them in the foreseeable future without actually having to sell your kidney, this is pretty much one of the ways to go about it, because the physical prices around a lot of this old Nintendo media is just absolutely crazy. Even games like Game & Wario, $85 as of then. I believe now it's over $100 or $30 on the eShop. That kind of stuff, you're just looking at such an insane price difference that there's really, I don't want to say there's no reason to buy physical, because obviously if you enjoy collecting, I do have a couple of these games physically, even things like Pokemon Crystal that I bought a while back, like I said before. But there are a lot of things that it's just a really good idea to check out on these eShops before they're gone in a month if you have access to them. And hey, you know what? Even on the off chance that you want to play it in the future more easily, even games like some of the Nintendo DS games, like of course The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, those games actually have a DS emulator built into the Wii U itself, so you can sit and play games like Spirit Tracks or Pokemon Ranger, DS games from their tiny little DS screen back on the original DS. You could be playing them on your big TV on the Wii U and just having a good time. Now again, there will always be ways that these games are preserved through emulation, and I do think that that's great. I think a lot of people think I don't appreciate that. I do, but for me, and for a lot of console gamers too, even though I do have a PC as well, it is sometimes easiest to just be able to get it through official channels and play it that way. And I also do think that these game publishers and creators do have a bit of an obligation to keep this art alive going forward. I don't think it should have to just fall on all of us downloading a bunch of emulators, and of course the goodwill of fans who are willing to spend thousands of hours getting it to work so that the rest of us can enjoy it. There should still be some kind of preservation of these things through official channels, and once this eShop shuts down, both of them I guess, there's going to be a lot less of that around Nintendo games. A lot more of this is going to just be at the mercy of what they want to put on the Switch eShop, but not even the eShop, the Switch architecture of pushing their Netflix-like subscription for online. Yes, it's an awesome deal that you get access to all those games. That's all it is, though. Access. It's temporary. It's around as long as that membership is. It's around as long as the Switch architecture is relevant. And once that's gone, those games are no longer accessible. A bunch of those games are available on the Wii U and the 3DS, and if you want to be able to play them, again, like I said, without absolutely going bananas with your finances, now is the time to do it, because you have a little over a month left. When I release this video, it is actually February 1st, and of course, as of the 27th of March, so almost 2 months away, these options are going to be gone for anyone who's interested in them, which is why I wanted to talk about it, because game preservation and being able to go back to old games is really important to me, especially in a world where a lot of movies and games nowadays, not all, but a lot, are so focused on crap like microtransactions and being a massive franchise and nickel and diming you. Sometimes it's great to be able to go back to things like The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD, or go back to things like Pokemon Crystal, or go back to things like Super Mario Advance 4, and just be able to play a game for what it was. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I hope that someone was interested in this, because I feel like whenever I bring up things like the 3DS or Wii U, it's such a niche topic because, one, they didn't do as good as their predecessors even when they launched, and two, there's a really big attitude that I think has been pushed by massive corporate gaming companies down onto gamers that old games are bad and not worth your time, and I don't think it could be further from the truth. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a fantastic day, and as always everyone, stay shway.